It's great to be joined today by Billy DeLancey, who's the co-founder and CEO of Lobbyists for Good, which is a crowdfunding platform that enables everyday people to hire professional lobbyists. So Billy, this is there's this debate in politics about inside-outside strategies. Do you work within a system to your advantage, or do you try to change the system if you believe that the system is fundamentally broken, corrupt, or otherwise not working properly? When it comes to lobbying, this is, I think you would agree, an extraordinarily corrosive element of American politics, but it is here and it appears to be here to stay. Is your argument on that basis, let's see if we can use it to do some good?
That's exactly it, David, and thanks for having me on the program. Lobbying isn't going to go away, even if we were to pass a law that banned lobbying, having people not allowed to lobby, that would be guaranteed to be thrown out because of the First Amendment. There's a line that says that everybody has the right to petition the government for redress of grievances. So that's exactly right how you said it. Why don't we use the tools available to change the system and get everyday people to have a stronger voice in government?
How does the platform work? Is it sort of like a Kickstarter for lobbying?
That's exactly what it is. And we actually use that description when describing it to people. Individuals, everyday American citizens or green card holders, can go onto our platform and submit ideas or campaigns around issues that they care about. And if the individual campaign raises $5,000 within 100 days, we will go ahead and find a lobbyist here in DC to advocate for their cause on Capitol Hill.
Now, how much professional lobbying does $5,000 get you? Because it feels like it might get you, a paragraph email or something like that.
Yeah, not much. The reason we have the $5,000, and most people, that's the first thing they point out to, we had it higher originally. But because we're a new organization, because we don't have a large email list, we wanted the barrier of entry to be a little bit lower. So we have $5,000 right now, about 40 hours of lobbying. And the thing is that we're going to do a lot of the back end research. So when you start a lobbying campaign, there's a lot of work around strategy, researching the issue, identifying targets on the Hill. We're going to do a lot of that so that the people that we hire will be able to go directly to the Hill and use that time to meet one-on-one with legislators and their staff.
So let's think through sort of in total, when we think about the amount of money that might be raised on your platform for individual lobbying efforts. Hypothetically, if all of that money were pooled together and used to try to change the system of lobbying and campaign finance that we have, might it have a bigger impact?
It's an interesting question, but I think we might be thinking a little bit too big. I started the platform to help people. There's a woman who started a campaign who's a female veteran, and there's a bill in Congress that would help force the VA to look after female veterans because it's just not such a male-dominated system. So that type of effort could pass a bill like that, 5,000, 10,000, because it has bipartisan support and just needs a push to the end. We lobbied for the Institute of Peace, which is an organization that tries to mitigate and lessen violent conflicts around the world. And we spent about 40 hours and we were able to increase their budget by $3 million. So do I think that this is a platform that's going to change our democracy and fix every problem that we have? I don't know. I hope it's a useful tool, but it's one of many, many things that need to happen. But I think that we're going to be very successful by helping these issues and these people who don't know where to even begin, or who call their legislator, convince their legislator, but need to reach all 534 other senators in Congress. Well, I should say 532 if they get both senators and the congressman. So we're trying to focus more on just giving that individual person a stronger voice. Whether or not we can be used as a tool to fix all that ails American democracy, I'm not convinced yet, but I hope that we can be part of the solution.
Can you talk a little bit about how the lobbying process works? I mean, I think people generally have an understanding that For example, like a large corporate lobby gets like the NCTA, which lobbies on the behalf of telecom and cable providers. Those cable providers
Sure.
and big companies give NCTA a bunch of money, and then NCTA goes and does what? Like, what is the actual nuts and bolts of the lobbying process?
A lot of it's just building relationships and using those relationships to get 30 minutes of the staffer's time. Um, that's an interesting example about the telecom because they have hundreds and hundreds of lobbyists working for them every day. And most of those lobbyists are connected, whether they worked on the Hill before or whether or not they're former members of Congress themselves. But an organization like that uses those relationships and uses the money that they give to political candidates to get the access, to get that staffer's 20 minutes at the right time when the bill that they're working on is at the right moment when they need a favor or they need an action on it. And it really is about that relationship building. I'll give a story about our experience in lobbying. We identified the Institute of Peace as an organization that really was important and was completely ignored by both Democrats and Republicans. And so what we did is we hired a lobbyist, a Republican, who had worked with a lot of people in foreign aid and foreign affairs. And all we did, and we didn't give a dime to any political candidates. We didn't, walk into Congress with a bag of money. We emailed him. And he used a lot of his personal connections from when he worked on the Hill, and we just asked for 30 minutes of people's time. And we went in with a good argument. And we said, this is why the Institute of Peace needs to be funded at a higher level. The war in Iraq is winding down, and when it does, there are going to be a lot of conflicts between the groups that came together to fight ISIS or ISIL. And we need somebody to be there to talk to those groups and have a peace mediation, conflict resolution. And it worked. And we were able to get $3 million pretty much on a $3,000 effort so that they could increase the programs that they were doing in Iraq and Afghanistan. So to answer your question, sorry if I was long-winded, it's about accessing the people who you need to reach, and it's about going in with a good argument and then having appropriate follow-up for when the bill that you're concerned about is in the legislative process to reach out to those people and say, listen, this is how I want you to vote. I need you to co-sponsor, and kind of that's how you can work the system.
So 3,000 in lobbying spend for 3 million in funds seems like, is that a 10,000% return? I'm not sure. I didn't exactly run the numbers, but it seems like it might be a 10,000% return. Do you have data about what the return is on lobbying investment, either across the entire lobbying space, within particular industries, or any data you might have about that?
It's not our data, but it's the Sunlight Foundation did a study, and they found, and I'll give 3 examples. When oil companies lobbied for a subsidy that would benefit them, they found a 5,000% return on their investment. When corporations banded together and lobbied for a tax holiday, a corporate tax holiday, and I think the year was 2003, 2004, they found a 22,000% return on their investment. And when pharmaceutical companies lobbied for the provision in Medicare where they couldn't compete the drug prices, and I'm a little iffy on exactly what they lobbied for, but it was about competing for drug prices, 76,000% return on their investment. And so we're hoping that we can have that kind of ROI for the people. And I'll just really quick, I used to work in foreign affairs, foreign aid, and we lobbied for an increased budget in foreign aid. And I gave $20 to Save the Children, a wonderful organization that does a lot of good work around the world and here in the US. And then when we lobbied for them, we were able to get bumps of 2 million, 4 million. So individuals can do a great service by donating, but a lot of the change really does come from government, whether it's a policy, whether it's funding. The return on investment of a lobbyist is staggering.
How does your organization determine what a good project is? In other words, people could disagree about what priorities should be or about what really deserves attention or lobbying funds spent on it. So what What's sort of the infrastructure to determine what is good enough?
Well, that's a great question, and one that we struggled with. We don't want to drive policy. We want to be a tool, a resource to connect people outside of the Beltway to people who have influence in government so that they can have a stronger voice. And so what we decided to do is just have a set of founding principles that every lobbying campaign must meet. And if it meets those founding principles, we will host it on our platform, even if it's something that we don't necessarily support 100%. But everything within those founding principles will be hosted on our platform. And it's pretty simple. It has to be for the common good. And that means that it can't benefit an industry. It can't benefit a group of people. Specifically, it has to benefit everybody as a whole. It has to be driven by, the second one is it has to be driven by the people. So a CEO of a telecom communications can't submit a campaign to our platform and advocate for defeating net neutrality. So it has to be citizens driven. The other things that are required, number 3, is that it has to have a chance of bipartisanship. So anything super far left or super far right where nobody on the other party is going to, we call it dead on arrival in the Hill. We won't host campaigns like that. And that kind of weeds out any of these extreme policies, extreme politics, the ideological extremes that could be on our platform. So we have that as a protector. And then the other thing, the last thing, is that it needs to be underrepresented. There's a lot of good nonprofits out there. There's a lot of great organizations that lobby for some great causes. And if people's money is going to be better donated to that organization, we'll instruct the person to fundraise for that organization. But what we found is even if there is a great nonprofit that has 3, 4, 5 lobbyists, they're going against 50, 60, 70 better paid lobbyists from the corporate or from the special interest group that opposes. So we haven't used that underrepresented one yet, but we do feel that we want to be kind of the voice for the voiceless. So those
super
are the
interesting,
four.
super interesting. Yeah. And I encourage people to check out the Lobbyists for Good website. We've been speaking with Billy DeLancey, who's the co-founder and CEO of Lobbyists for Good. Billy, we'll be following it, and I look forward to seeing the success of future campaigns.
I appreciate it, David. Thanks so much for having me on.